Okay, so we're waiting. We'll just do a quick recap. So we're on Vav Amud Base 6b. We are about a third of the way down. You'll see in the middle of the page it says for She'ein La Shlosh Defanos. The Mishnah said that one of the things which invalidates a sukkah is if it doesn't have 3 walls, it has to have a minimum of 3 walls. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan Shtayim Kihil Chasan V'Shlishis Afilu Tefach. So we saw last time that the Brisa says when we say 3 walls, we mean 3 full walls, meaning at least 7 tefachim, and 1 wall even if it's a tefach. So 2 full walls and a bit. Rav Shimon Omer Shlosh Kihil Chasan V'Revi'is Afilu Tefach. Whereas Rav Shimon would say no, you have to have 3 full walls of a 7 tefachim each, and then 1 of a tefach. But Mike, with regards to Gemara, what is the source of dispute between the Rabbanan and Rav Shimon? Says the Gemara, Rabbanan Savra Yesh Eim L'Mesores. The rabbis are of the opinion that we give precedence to the written text, the way it was transmitted in the written form. Rav Shimon Omer Yesh Eim L'Mikra. Whereas Rav Shimon says no, we give precedence to the way that the words are read. So it says Gemara, Rabbanan Savra Yesh Eim L'Mesores. So the rabbis said we give precedence to the way something is written. And in relation to Sukkah, it's written basukot, basukot, basukos. Yeah, 2 in the singular and 1 in the plural. If you look at the Rashi, almost parallel, Rashi quotes Pasuk for us. Basukos teishvu shivas jamim, basukos ki basukos hoshafti. Twice it's written chaser, missing a vav, and the third time it's written with a vav full. So the first 2 instances of the word, the way it's written appear to be in the singular. And then the third time it's written is in the plural. So we have 2 singulars, 1, 2, plus a plural, minimum plural is 2. So we have 4 instances of the word sukkah. Hare Khan says Abba, says the Gemara says Abba. That's 4 instances. Dal chad legufaye. We remove 1 for the mitzvah of sukkah itself. So the word is written once for the word for the actual mitzvah. That leaves 3 behind. 3 instances of the word sukkah. Shtayim kil chasan. So we learn from that 2 of them shall be full walls of 7 tefachim each. V'atei hilchasa. Along comes halacha l'Moshe Sinai. V'ge'eretza l'shlishis. V'ukma atefach. And it reduces the 3rd wall down to a tefach. So that's how the rabbis deduce 2 walls and a bit, 2 full walls plus a tefach. From the fact that we've got 4 instances of the word sukkah by way we read it, taking 1 away to be used for the mitzvah of sukkah itself, so we know that actually there is a mitzvah. The other 3 instances can tell us that 2 walls have to be full. Sinai comes along and tells us that, and the 3rd one can be just a tefach. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Chapper Rabbi Shimon Sava Yesh Eim L'Mikra. And Rabbi Shimon says no, we give precedence to the way the Torah is read. Rabbi Shimon Sava Yesh Eim L'Mikra, and therefore basukos, basukos, basukos. The way we read the word, even though it's written in 2 instances in the singular, it's read the way it's vocalized, it's read as basukos in the plural, as if a vav was there, even though it's not actually written on 2 occasions. Says the Gemara, therefore, basukos, 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 3 plurals of the word sukkos, hare kan sheish, minimum of 2 each, 2 times 3 is 6. Dalchad, and Dalchad Karala Gufai, take away 1 word of those words for the mitzvah itself. Pashulei Lahu Arba. So we start off with 6. 6, right? Take away 2 of those included in 1 word. That leaves you with 4. 2 words Sukkos times 2 is 4. Therefore, says Rav Shimon, Shalosh Kil Chasan, 3 walls, full walls, 7 tefachim each. Along comes halacha l'Moshe Sinai and reduces the 4th wall of the Ugumta Atefach and establishes it as a tefach. So that's where Rabbi Shimon would say you need 3 full walls, and the 4th wall needs to only be a tefach. That's where we get it from. Gemara goes on and says, we're now just over halfway down 6b, above Amud Beis. It says Gemara v'ibais ema. And if you want to say the difference between them is this: Tukuli alma yesh em lemikra. No, they all agree. Both Rabbanan and Rabbi Shimon agree that we give precedence to the way the posuk is read. The words are read, and therefore, I'll just show you where we are, Johnny. If you can see, I just put the cursor on it. V'ibais ema here.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. V'ibais ema says, and if you want to suggest that in fact Tukuli alma yesh em lemikra, that both the Rabbanan and Rabbi Shimon agree that we give precedence to the way the Pesukim are read, and therefore they would agree there are 6 instances of the word sukkah, and this is in fact what they argue about. That's why they end up with a different psak. The reason why they agree that there are 6 instances of the word sukkah, but they disagree about something else, which would lead them to their individual psak, which is, according to Rabbanan, 2 walls and a tefach. According to Rabbi Shimon, 3 walls and a tefach. What is it? Ma sava sechachra ba'ikra. One of them holds, and this is the Rabbanan, that the schach itself requires 1 instance of the word sukkos. So although we've got 6, we take away 2, which is 1 word, for the mitzvah itself. Take away another word for the sachach itself, we're left with 2. And another one, the other one holds, Shimon holds, no, schach itself doesn't require a posuk, and therefore you're still left with 3 full walls and a bit. Look at Rashi. Schacha. A bit further up here. Here. About 5 lines up from where those diagrams are. So here. Schacha lo baikra. So Rabbi Shimon would be of the opinion that you don't need one of those words to teach you the need for schach. The Shma'uta, the Gufay Nafka, the Sukkah, V'lo schach lo mikray. Rabbi Shimon would say we're using one of those words in the Pasuk to teach us about Sukkah. And Sukkah without schach is by definition not a Sukkah, as we've seen previously. The very definition of a Sukkah is that it is something which is schacha, which gives shade, which is the schach. And therefore, you don't need an additional word to teach you that you need that there needs to be schach, there needs to be shade. And therefore, that will still leave you with 3 instances, 4 words, 4 occasions of the word schach or sukkah, and therefore that would be 3 walls and a bit.
What principle is this called, where they're joining together words from all different sources? What is it called?
Well, they're not, because it's one posuk. If you look at Rashi,
but even if it's one posuk, so they're just counting the number of words times sukkah is written.
Yeah, because well, it's called mosif because it's superfluous.
So okay, so it's just because there's 2 more than necessary. Then there must be 2 extra reasons.
One is there for the mitzvah itself.
That's clear. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, but why need to say the word sukkos again? Keep us sukkos shavtes b'nei Yisrael. Yeah, teishu basukos kiko basukos shavtes b'nei Yisrael. We don't need that again. Yeah, and therefore, since the Torah said it again and again, we know nothing is superfluous in Torah, and therefore it's open to be darshaned. Yeah.
Okay. So, but the principle is called Mosif, is it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So Mosar. Additional.
Mosar.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we can suggest actually they both agree that we give precedence to the way the Torah is read, and the reason why they end up with different psak is because they disagree over whether you need one of those words to teach you schach or not. Gemara goes on and says, That's one suggestion. Next suggestion is here where the cursor is again, the end of the line. No, again, you could argue that actually they both agree, both the Rabbanan and Rabbi Shimon agree that we give precedence to the way the Torah is written. Meaning there would only be 4 instances of the word. Basukos, basukos, singular, singular. Basukos, plural, is 4. If they all agree, we give precedence to the way it's written. This is what they're arguing about. They would argue about what is the halakha l'moshe coming along to do. Is it coming along according to Rabbanan? It's coming along to tell you you can reduce the third wall, so 2 full walls and a tefach. The third wall doesn't need to be full; it can be reduced down to a tefach. That's a Rabbanan. No, Rabbi Shimon was saying no. The halakha l'moshe Sinai is coming along to add, to tell you that you have to have 3 full walls, and the 4th only needs to be a tefach. It's a different way of looking at it. That's another one. There's no Rashi on that. And the Gemara goes on and offers another option. And again, the end of the line, V'bayis ema dekuli alma ki asu hilchos legara. And you could argue, you could suggest that they all agree that halakha l'moshe Sinai comes along to reduce down. V'yesh aim l'masores. And we give precedence to the way the Torah is written. V'hacha b'dorshin techilos kamiflagei. And therefore, why do they end up with a different psak? Because actually they're arguing, they have a difference of opinion about whether you can darshan the first existence of the word or not. Yeah? Look at Rashi. Dorshin techilasoi. This is Rashi here. Dorshin techilos. Do we darshan, meaning can we expound something from the first occasion where a word is mentioned in the pasuk? L'darsha havelahu arba'a. If we say yes, you can, then you've got 3 instances of it. The halakha l'moshe comes along to reduce. Veishim l'masores. We go according to where it's written. So there are 4 instances, and it comes along to reduce. The Rabbanan would say you can't darshan from the first one. You need that for the mitzvah itself, and therefore you're only left with 3 instances. Comes along, the halakha l'moshe Sinai reduces that down to 2 full walls and a tefach. Whereas Rav Shimon would say you can darshan from the first occurrence of the word. Therefore, you've got 4 occasions of the word sukkah. Along comes the halakha l'moshe Sinai and reduces it down to 3, meaning 3 full walls, and the 4th wall only needs to be a tefach. So, however way you split it, however you say what the argument is going to be, the pesach is always going to be the same. The rabbis of the opinion it's 2 and a bit, 2 and a tefach, whereas Rabbi Shimon would say it has to be 3 and a tefach. And we know how we pass them. We always go acharei l'rabim. We go according to the majority. So we pass them like Rabbana. As long as you've got 2 full walls of 7 tefachim each, then the 3rd wall, halakha l'moshe Sinai, only needs to be a tefach, and you have a kosher sukkah. Okay? Good. Okay. So, says the Gemara. Gemara actually now tries to give some support to Reb Shimon, and says, more down here, Rav Masna says, Ta'amed Reb Shimon mehacha. How did Reb Shimon, what is the source of Reb Shimon's teaching that you need to have 3 full walls and the 4th wall only needs to be a tefach? He quotes a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Pasuk says, "V'sukkah tiyeh letzel yomam mechoren." The sukkah shall be for you. This is talking about Mashiach, the sukkah of in the Messianic times, that sukkah will be a shade for you during the day from the heat. Ulemachser, ulemistor, mizerem, umimtar. And it should be a shelter and a refuge from the winds and the rain. Yeah, says Rashi. So how does Rabbi Shimon learn from this posuk that the sukkah has to be at least 3 full walls and a tefach, as you see in the diagram? Well, not really that diagram there, because that's 2 and a bit. Says Rashi. Yeah, look at Rashi. Here, the last of the lines before the diagram. It should be the machzeh and a mistah should be a shelter and a refuge from the wind and from the rain. Says Rashi, uvelo abam mechitzos lav mechasem mizeremhu. And without 4 walls, meaning at least 3 full ones and a 4th one, you're not going to get much protection from the wind. Sharuach meishiv es hazerem derech dofen haporetz, because the wind is going to blow the wind in the direction of the open wall. So if you've only got two full walls and a little bit, you've got a huge open space. Look here, for example, I'm pointing at the screen. Here, for example, if this is what you've got, according to Rabbanan, 2 full walls at right angles to each other, and the 3rd wall of a tefach here at the end of this wall, then the wind is going to be, you're not going to get much protection. You're sitting inside here. You've got the wind on this side and on this side. You've got a whole open part here. The wind is going to be blowing right into your sukkah. It's not going to be providing you with any protection. And also in this formation, let's say you've got one wall which is more than 7 tefachim, another wall which is just 7 tefachim, and then one of a tefach. Again, you've got a huge amount of open space, and that is where the elements are really going to batter you from. Yeah, you're going to get only a little bit of protection, but you're going to get a huge amount of exposure to the element, and therefore that's not. Rav Shimon says, a sukkah is described as something which gives you shelter from the heat, that's the schach, but also from the wind and from the rain. If you've got something that's so open because it's only 2-sided with a tiny flap as the 3rd wall, that's not going to give you that type of protection. Therefore, it doesn't have the status of a sukkah as described in Yeshayahu. Interesting, we don't normally base halacha on psukim from the Nevi'im. Yeah, normally only from Torah, from Chumash, right? So I think we can say here that he's not using it. Rabbi Shimon himself didn't rely on this as the sources of his halacha. It clearly is from what we said here, which is that we give precedence. We can argue this because we give precedence to where the Torah is written. Halacha Moshe comes along and reduces it, but we can't darshan, and we can darshan from the first example of the word, and therefore he would say that teaches us 3 walls and a bit. And this is merely Rav Masna is sort of giving a support to that opinion of Rav Shimon, which we don't pass on like anyway. What is where's his reasoning coming from the idea that a sukkah has to be something which is something which is described as giving you shelter and protection, and a sukkah that is so minimal that it only has 2 full walls and a bit in whatever formation you have it. In fact, we're going to see there are going to be some other suggestions. In fact, it doesn't have to be in this formation. That can't be giving you the protection the Pasuk is talking about. That's one way of looking at it. Look at Tosfos here at the bottom, the final Tosfos on the page. It says Tosfos, the sukkah tiyed itself, your sukkah should be for you as a protection. Yerushalmi Arinan Taima de Rabbi Shimon. The Yerushalmi gives a reason for Rabbi Shimon. Minadak right from this pasuk, because it calls as this is referred to in this pasuk. The sukkah tiyed itself yomam mechurev. Says the pasuk, the sukkah shall be shade for you during the day from the heat. Hare achas That's one type of protection. L'machse u'lemistor harei shnayim. It should be a refuge and a shelter. That's two. Mizerem umimta, from the wind and from the rain. Shnayim, that's another two. So what have you got? 2 plus 2 plus 1. It's 5, right? Interesting. Rabbanan Amri Mizerem imta achas. Yeah. They would say, no, that's considered to be 1. So the reason why he adds up 4 walls is because, and an interesting way, actually, we had counting it as 5 here, it would appear from this. Let me see if we've got it right. So look at the 1. That's 3. 1 and 2, 3. That's 2. So 5, we would say. I'm not sure how you get 5 walls. Okay, but clearly we can see that it cannot be less than 3 and a 4th one. It has to be at least 4. Whereas the Rabbi was saying, no, the Zera Mimta is only 1, and therefore 2 and a bit is sufficient. Okay, so go back into the Gemara. Okay, says the Gemara now, having suggested that either according to Rabbanan or according to Reb Shimon, but we're going to go to Rabbanan, that you only need 2 and a bit. Where do you place this third wall of a tefach? Ask the Gemara. Where would you place this third wall of a tefach? Says the Gemara, Amarav, Ma'amidoi keneged hayotze. Rav would say you place it next to the distant wall. And that's why we now, again, back in these diagrams. Yeah, this is what we're talking about. So the wall furthest away from anything else, however you have them set up, would be this one here. Says Rashi, the last Rashi on the page, keneged hayotze, corresponding to the most distant wall, makom shemachitza kala, a point where the wall comes to an end. So the walls come to an end. So the two walls are at right angles to each other. So attached to where the wall ends, so either here or here, doesn't matter. But so whichever one you want. If the two walls run from east, so you've got east and north, then you put the tefach at the end of the northern wall. In the corner of the western wall side, sorry, the western side. Or at the eastern part next to the south. Okay, so either here or here. Yeah, but it could also be there or there. Okay, at either of those junctions. Yeah, so but attached, that's the whole point. Attached at the end. Yeah, as we understand it. Yeah. So we'll see. There's Rashi there. Okay. Says the Gemara. That's Rav. So Amri lei Rav Kahana Rav Asi le Rav. Rav Kahana Rav Asi say to Rav. I need to change page. On to Zion Omid Aleph. Yeah, says the Gemara. So they say to him, "Vayamidnu keneged rosh tor." They say to him, "No, why? You need to place it at the head of the row." Look at Rashi. It's a bit difficult Rashi to understand here, and actually these diagrams are not quite correct. We'll see what it is in a moment. And I'll try and draw one for you. Says Rashi, Rosh Tor. What does this Rosh Tor mean? At the head of the Tor, the line. Says Rashi, Rosh Shura. At the head of the. I got another word for line. Yeah, one's Hebrew, one's Aramaic. The Mekutza Tzvonis at the northern branch. So the north. So we could look there. Let's do this for a moment. So here, let's say this is the north. So here at the northern branch, here you'd put the tefach. Says Rashi. Ma'abias ba'alchusin. You put it at a diagonal. So whereas we saw previously, we saw on the bottom of the previous onwards, it had it straight. Yes. Here you can see it's at an angle, at a diagonal. Says Rashi. Yeah. Oh, mizrachis deromis. Either at the southeastern side, so almost facing towards the southeast. So it's pointing down here. So that's why this is wrong. This would be southeast, wouldn't it? This side would be southeast. Yeah. So here, either southeast, so it's facing southeast. So it starts at the north and facing southeast. Yeah. Says Rashi. Kishemachitzos ma'arvis tzvonis. When the wall is at the northwestern. So again, that's why these don't quite work. Deniro noter lebeis mechitzos. Mechaze ka'aba mechitzos. What the whole point of what they're saying is, the reason why you put it in an angle is that it's pointed towards the other walls, and therefore it seems to close them off in some way. Okay, let me see if I can draw it for you 1 second. So here are your two full walls. They're suggesting that the third wall of a tefach is put there. Is that? So similar to what we've got here in Rashi. Yeah?
Specifically at an angle, you're saying, not straight.
Specifically at an angle, so it's almost notionally closing up the gap like that. The dotted lines are a notional wall, but it makes it look like because this is in line with this wall here. It's in some way closing up the sukkah. Yeah? So as if you've got a enclosed sukkah. Yeah? That's one way of looking at it. So now onto the wine line of Rashi. Rosh Tohi telem ma'ane al shel sof sadeh shahat salamim kalim v'holchin ve'elchusun ze aruch mizeh ma'at. Rashi is saying when they used to plow their fields, they used to have a certain way of plowing the fields that at the end of the rows they would get shorter and shorter and shorter. Each subsequent row would get shorter and shorter and shorter. You'd end off with like a diagonal at the end of the field. Yeah, like that. So that's what he's saying. That's what it's going to end up looking like. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Or alternatively, we're talking about this. You've got two full walls, and then the tefach wall is put here, facing towards the two walls, which again, notionally, because it's facing towards them, you see where the dotted lines are, closes up the gaps between. You see that?
So the shape of the sukkah is not important, Rabbi.
Sorry?
The the shape of the sukkah is not important.
No, not particularly important. No.
Just
So
the fact that there's
what's the reason behind that then? To close this, but make the place more compact, or to
Yeah, so Rashi's saying in that way, it looks more like you've got four walls that way and that way than it does if you have it. So I'll just do it in small. If you just had this, which is what we suggested up to now, 1, 2, and a straight down third tefach. I mean, we can. I mean, the logic is obvious. You can see, this is so far wide open that you couldn't really suggest that this third wall is in any way sort of closing up the sukkah. Whereas if you've got it at sort of an angle, it's suggesting, it appears that you're trying to close up a gap, either by doing it there attached or doing it here detached. And this is notionally closing up these gaps here. Okay, that's what Rav Kahana and Rav Asi are saying. How does the Gemara respond? Says the Gemara, Shasik Rav. Rav was silent. He didn't disagree with them. In fact, now there's two ways of looking at that. Either he wasn't disagreeing with them because he agreed with them, he couldn't argue with them, or he just didn't accept their opinion at all. And as we know, we don't necessarily pass on that. We pass on that this is absolutely fine. This is actually Rav, according to Rav, we go according to Rav. This is actually fine. You could argue this might be better, but according to the simple halacha, the way he sets it out is fine. Says the Gemara, end of the line. Itema nami amar Shmuel mishmei de Levi. Says the Gemara, actually, we've got a support for Rav, because it was said, Shmuel said the name of Levi also like Rav. Ma'amidoi keneged hayotze. He said, place it next to the furthest wall. Exactly what Rav has said. V'chein morin bei midrasha. Similarly, it was taught in the base of Medrash. Ma'amido keneged hayotze. Set it up corresponding to or next to the distance wall. So exactly as Rav had said, this is perfectly fine. So we have two other opinions say this, like Rav, is perfectly fine. Three opinions that say the same thing. That's how we pass it. Says the Gemara. The Gemara now suggests another way of placing the tefach wall, and you'll see now we're going to use. I need to move this a little bit so then I can see better. You'll see in the margin here these diagrams. We're going to come to those in a second. Says the Gemara, fourth line, Rabbi Simon, V'yitema Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Simon, some say it was actually Yeshua ben Levi. Amar said, "Oselo tefach soche, u'ma'amido b'pachos mishlosh tefachim samach ledofen." Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, what you need to do is you need an extended tefach. So tefach is normally the dimensions of 4 fingers pressed together, closed up together. Okay, probably about depends. We're talking about let's say maximum of 8 centimeters. We normally say about tefach is about 8 centimeters. Yeah, around about 8 centimeters. Yeah, a tefach sochek is an extended tefach. Look at Rashi. Where are we? Rashi, the first of the narrow lines in Rashi. Tefach sochek. Says Rashi, Modedin bedalad etzbaos shein nogos zeh b'zeh to have a tefach u'mashahu. Rashi says an extended tefach is when you measure 4 fingers without squeezing them, touching each other. So you've got gaps in between, which is a tefach and a bit. So a bit more than the normal dimensions of a tefach, a bigger tefach. Yeah, tefach plus VAT. Okay? Look at Rush. Look at Tosfos here, over here on the left hand side. Oseloi tefach soche. Kana b'pachos megimel samach the dofen lo yoel le'echshev ketefach. Says Tosfos, the reason why we need it to be a slightly bigger tefach this time is because if you've got a kana, you've got a board or a beam which is less than 3 tefachim close to a wall, it's not considered to be so lo yoel lechshev ketefach machmas lavud. And we're going to see that what we're going to suggest is that this is basically what we're talking about is doing this, having a board of a tefach plus a bit less than 3 tefachim away from this wall, or it could be from this wall either, it doesn't matter, but less than 3 tefachim away from one of the full walls. Yeah, says Tosfos, the only way you can do that is if you've got a full tefach, at least a tefach and a bit, because otherwise the principle of lavud, of extension. So what we're going to say is, which we learned previously, the idea of lavud, which is halachah, which is Sinai, is when you have a partition and there's a gap between that and another part. If it's less than 3 tefachim, we say actually we just join them together. That gap in between is almost insignificant. However, says Tosfos, kana b'pachos megimel samoch le'el dofen lo yoel le'echshev ketefach machmas lavud ta'alakach by tefach sochek today she dofen zerach of abat tefachim. It has to be, it will only work, this idea of lavud, of extension, if we've got an extended tefach corresponding to that wall, which is the width of 4 tefachim. So Paris Bekontras, as Rashi explains, Paris Bekontras, Kedei Shei Rov Dofen, the Shiura, the Shiva Tefachim, Umashu, V'od, the Kana Mibata Le Ivorei. Because the truth is, lavud only really works when you've got a mechitza of at least 4 tefachim. Yeah? 4 tefachim, anything less than 4 tefachim is not considered to be anything of any significance. So unless you've got a board here of 4 tefachim, using the principle of lavud won't work. And therefore we say we need at least to be, because we're going to stretch it even further now. We're going to say, not on normal circumstances, we would say, let's say you're in Hilchos Eruvin, you've got a gap in your Eruv, you put a board of 4 tefachim in that gap. As long as it's less than 3 tefachim away from a solid part of the Eruv, all good. Yeah, let's just draw it. You understand what I'm saying? You need to draw it. Okay, let me draw it here. Okay. Okay, look at the top of the page here. You've got 2 solid mechitzas here, but there's a gap in between. Okay, and that gap is too big. So what you take a board, a plank of 4 tefachim, and you place it in the gap. Now, as long as the gap between here and here is less than 3 tefachim, and here is less than 3 tefachim, we say lavud. This extends, notionally extends. It plugs the gap because these holes, these 2 gaps are so insignificant as if they're not there. But this has to be at least 4 tefachim to start with, right? If this is less than 4 tefachim, then even if it's within 3 tefachim of the other side, it's going to be no good. What we're going to suggest is something even a bit more radical. When it comes to sukkah, we're going to suggest that as long as you've got a good tefach of a wall, will allow you to see there. Let me draw up here for you, 1 second. up here in the corner, you've got your 2 full walls. Then you've got a good tefach of a wall here, or a mechitza. But what is only a tefach? Less than 3 tefachim from the top there, which is exactly what we've got here on the page, on the margin here. You see that? Exactly what we've got here. We're going to say Halacha Moshe Sinai using Lovud. We're good. Okay, but we can't take the liberties here. Normally this has to be 4 tefachim. We've said it only needs to be a tefach if it was joined. Therefore, if it's not going to be joined less than 3 tefachim away, this has got to be at least a tefach. At least a tefach. And we'll say it's a tefach now. We'll call it 4 tefachim, just notionally, plus the 3 gap. That gives us 7. That gives us our full wall.
But by making a double gap, you're already stretching it a bit, aren't you? Because if you just have 1 gap, it will be too wide, the single gap. So you put the lavud in the middle in order to make the 2 other sides small.
Where's the double gap?
But you put this extra piece in the middle, didn't you? And you had a gap on one side and gap on another side.
You're talking here.
Yes, those 2. Yes.
Yeah. That's why this one has to be. That's why this one has to be 4 tefachim at least.
It has to be in the middle, though. Otherwise, if you put it nearer one side, it will be will make the gap too wide.
Yeah, I agree. So
it's also a bit of a fiddle, isn't it?
Well, there are 2 conditions here. 2 conditions. The board has to be at least 4 tefachim, otherwise it's not considered to be anything.
You said that, yeah.
And it has to be less than 3 tefachim from here and less than 3 tefachim from here.
Yeah, but only because you've made 2 of them. Have you got that?
Right, true.
So you can make more, surely. If you've got a smaller piece of board, let's say you've only got 1, instead of 4 tefachim, you've got 3, make another gap in the middle. Or divide it into 2 pieces.
Yeah, but hold on a second. You can't use lovud. The only normally within a Reuven for lovud to work, you've got to have a minimum of 4 tefachim.
But it has to be 1 piece, 1 solid pice.
1 piece of 4 tefachim. Yeah.
You can't divide that up into 2. You've got 2 little bits, and you can do it again and again. You can divide.
No. It always has to be 2. What we're stretching is when it comes to sukkah, because what we're saying is up here. We're saying, although normally that little piece has to be 4 tefachim for lovud to work to plug the gap, we're saying, actually, as long as it's at least a good tefach plus VAT, we'll ignore the fact that it's not 4 tefachim, and we'll allow lovud to work.
Right.
And that's particular to sukkah. Okay? So says the Gemara, let's just see it inside again. Rabbi Simon. Rabbi Simon, Rabbi Shua ben Levi. They said neighbor Rabbi Levi, Ama oselo tefach sochek. So you make a larger, an extended tefach. Umamida b'pachos mishlosha tefachim samach ledofen, and then you place it at least less than 3 tefachim away from one of these walls. So from this wall here, where this cursor is. And as we know, anything that's less than 3 tefachim close to a wall is like lovud, is extended. Look at Rashi. Mamida v'pachos migimol, and you see the base here is now referring to this diagram. Samoch la'achas hadafonos. So he's placing it close to one of the walls. Upachos megimol kolavod, and as long as it's less than 3 tefachim away from that wall, it extends. V'haveilei k'mechitza shel daled, and therefore it's considered to be a wall of 4, because you've got the tefach itself of the wall, solid material. You've got a 3 tefachim gap, so we can actually now. We're adding the gap to the tefach to give you 4 tefachim. And therefore, k'mechitzas shel daled tefachim is now like a partition of 4 tefachim. Umeshech sukkah shiva nimsaruba shel dofin asoi. And now it's as if the dimensions of it are 7 tefachim. So we've almost double counted it here. We've said 1 tefach plus the 3 tefachim gap is 4 tefachim. 4 tefachim with a 3 tefach gap is 7 tefachim. 7 tefachim is like a complete wall. It's as if now you've got can you see here? We've got one full wall, 2 full walls. Here was our tefach, less than 3 tefachim away. We've said 3 tefachim plus the 1 is 4. 4 tefachim plus the 3 gap. It's as if you've got 7 going down. It's very inventive accounting.
Creative, it's called.
Very creative, yes, creative accounting. You see what we've done there, though? Yeah? Okay.
So who are you kidding? That's the question.
It's notional.
Yes.
It's all notional. Yeah. Okay. So that was right. That's Rashi. Yeah, and there was a ribbon. So you've got the full wall. Okay. Go back in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Another suggestion of where we can put our tefach wall. Rabbi Yehuda says, Sukkah ha'asui k'mavoi k'sheira. Rabbi Yehuda says, if you make a sukkah like an alleyway, and look at the diagram here, Gimel.
So it's two parallel.
So the 2 full walls are parallel to each other. Yeah, so you've got 4 openings, yes? One here, one here, one here, and one here. So
you've actually only got 2 walls, though, haven't you?
You've got right. So we're saying, where now do you put the tefach? Says so. He says a sukkah made like a mavoi is kosher, meaning with the 2 full walls, they don't have to be touching each other, as we suggested here. They're not touching like they are here. They're parallel to each other. He says what you can do is you can place your tefach wherever you like. You can put it at the end here, put it touching here, touching there. Let me draw it. It might come through.
And this is Arba Tfachot, right? Tfachim, right? Tfachot. Arba.
10. Can you see? Here are 2 parallel walls. You can put your tefach. You only need 1. I've drawn 4 in to show you where the 4 can go. You can either put it there, 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 or there.
Right.
Your choice. Now, any of those will be fine according to Rabbi Yehuda. Look at Rashi. Kashera. So a sukkah made like an alleyway is kosher. Tahaname Craig Hilchasan because it has 2 full walls. And the third one, you can put the whole revach shir, say whichever end you want, ever opening you want. Shahar arba yotzim, there are 4 openings. Uleize yotze, shiyirse ya'asena. And wherever you want to place it, you can place it at any of those 4 ends. Okay, another suggestion. Back to Rav Simon again, Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rav Simon v'tema Rabbi Shua ben Levi, ama oselo pas arba umashahu. Says Rabbi Shua ben Levi, you should make a board or a beam of 4 tefachim and a bit. Uma'amidu v'pachos mishloshet samach l'dofen, and then place it at least 3 tefachim, within at least 3 tefachim of one of the walls. And as long as it's less than 3 tefachim from one of the walls, it's as if it's extended and it's good. So you see the 4th diagram, or the 3rd diagram here with the daled next to it. Here we've got a mavoi. Here we've got a beam of 4 and a bit tefachim, which in itself is considered to be a kosher mechitza. If it's placed within 3 tefachim of one of the walls, either this side or this, it doesn't have to be both sides actually. It can be either side. As long as it's within 3 tefachim of one of these sides, it closes up the gap. This extends across and it closes up the gap. Look at Rashi. Oser pass. So you make a board of four and a bit tefachim. Dofin gamo shel dal tefachim. That makes it into a complete wall of 4 tefachim. Uma'amida b'pachos megimel samach l'dofin. And you place it within 3 tefachim of one of the walls. Etzel miksud pass. So close to like the branch of this board. Abba 4. Because we say that it extends. Because Zion Tefachim Aruch Kadei Sukkah Katana. And again, notionally, what we turned this board of 4 plus the gap of 3 into a wall of 7. So it was very much like this one, but in a different design.
Different configuration.
Yeah. Drawing it for you. You see the 2 parallel walls, a mechitza of 4 tefachim with a less than 3 tefach gap is as if there's a wall now of 7 tefachim. Once you've got 7 tefachim, this actually gives us 3 kosher walls. It's a perfectly kosher sukkah, a perfectly kosher small sukkah.
So if it's exposed to the outside world, that gap, you put a curtain or something, don't you? Actually, that's what you do. I mean, this is what
you can. You don't need to. You don't need to.
They're completely open if it was in, let's say, Eretz Yisrael, somewhere on a roof somewhere.
Yeah, and that was what's the name's objection to it? That was Rav Shimon's objection to it. That the apostle describing a sukkah in Yeshayahu was telling us that the sukkah gives you shade from the elements. The type of sukkahs we're describing aren't giving you that much shade from the elements, and yet we say they're still kosher. Ask the Gemara. Let's just finish off here. Ask the Gemara. Hold on a second. We've said 2 different things. Let's find what it is. Yeah, umai, says Gemara. Umai, see where the cursor is. Umai shna hasam d'ka'amat sagi tefach soche. What's the difference between this case over here, when we said you only need an extended tefach, and that's good, we can make it into a 7. Umay shnahacha to amrat by pas arba. And what's the difference between here when we said the board needs to be 4 tefachim and a bit itself? What's the difference? How can we said that notionally we can turn 1 tefach plus 3 tefachim gap into a 4 tefach board plus the 3 tefachim gap into a 7 tefach. How can you say that with a tefach there, but say here, in order to make 7, you need 4 to start with? You understand the question? So answers the Gemara, Hasam de'ika shtei defanos kehilchasan. Says the Gemara there, in this configuration, where you've got 2 walls, which are correct walls to start with, are the correct walls in Tefillin Halacha. Says Rashi Shlomis Kilchasan Kemin Gam Te'ei Niros Hamufulashos Kihai. They make the shape of a gamma. Gamma.
Triangle. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Gam is gamma, right? Whatever the shape is, a right angle. We call it a right angle. The Gemara Rashi calls it a gum, which I think it means gimel, not a gimel, but a gamma.
Yes, could be.
What's a gamma look like? In 1 second. I'm going to Google gamma 2 seconds.
But it depends whether you take a capital or a small one, because they're different.
See that?
That's right.
Here we go. There you go.
The gamma. Yeah, like a dalit, like a dalit, actually like a dalit reversed.
Yeah, why Rashi had to use that rather than any other? But anyway,
and say a dalit. He could have said a dalit, couldn't he?
Yeah. Well, there it is. Really, it's very clear here. Yeah, what we'd call a right angle. Yeah.
Yes.
So since there, since there you've got two walls correctly configured like a dialog, like a gamma, then we can say you only need a tefach, an extended tefach, and we'll notionally extend that tefach plus 3 tefachim gap between the end of. In fact, here it's got that little tefach there, hasn't it? Look. We'll use the gap of 3 tefachim plus the tefach to make 4 tefachim. That's our kosher mechitza. Then use again the gap of 3 tefachim and say 3 tefachim plus the 4 tefachim is 7 tefachim. There is our complete wall. That we can do because we've already got 2 kosher walls. We don't look like which aren't mefulash, which aren't running parallel to each other. But here, Hacha, the Laker, sorry, let's go back. Then let's just change straight back to it. We go back to the Gemara now. Yeah. There where we've got 2 walls, Kihuk full walls, it's enough to have an extended tefach. Hacha, the Laker Shtetefanos. But whereas here, when we don't have 2 kosher walls because they are not running, they're not connected to each other. If you've got a board of 4 tefachim, then good. Then we can use lovud. We can say the 4 tefachim plus the 3 tefachim gap makes 7 tefachim. That's the kosher wall, all good. So
if you have a 4 tefachim extra piece, it doesn't matter what configuration you've got for the other 2 because you've already made yourself ke'ilu a third dolphin.
Right. So we're saying here in this configuration, in this configuration, in order to make this good with your third wall, the third wall has to be a minimum of 4 tefachim and less than 3 tefachim from either side. And then
so you have to make the corridor narrower.
Yeah, and that will do.
Otherwise, you could open the corridor to be a very wide sukkah.
Right, but here because you haven't started with 2 kosher walls because they're not connected to each other.
Right,
you have to have a wall of 4 tefachim plus 3 tefachim gap to give us 7. Whereas here, where we've already got 2 kosher walls connected to each other, the third wall only needs to be a bit of a tefach, an extended tefach, and therefore using 3 tefachim as lovud, make that into 4 tefachim, and then say 4 tefachim plus 3 tefachim back is 7, and we're all good. So here, whereas here, when we don't have that, the 2 kosher walls to start with connected to each other, this has to be 4. If it's 4, all well and good. We say 4 plus 3 is 7, all well and good. If not 4, then you can't say plus 3. We can't say that plus 3 was going to make it into 4, and therefore not. Okay. The Gemara is now going on actually and suggest when we say, the Gemara is now going to suggest a slightly different understanding of this extra tefach, not this configuration, the simple one we had right at the beginning of this one. Yeah, the Gemara is now going to suggest that actually when we say that this only needs to be a tefach here, the Gemara is going to suggest actually we split this tefach. Put half a tefach there and half a tefach here at the end here, and make a suras pesach. Make a beam going across. So you're doing more to close up the gap than we were previously.
They're actually creating a longer wall in effect.
Yeah, you're creating the outline of a wall.
Yes. Using a tzorata petach to make up the difference.
So it's a non.
So you have to break up the 4 tefachim into 2 and 2.
The 4 tefachim. No.
If it's 4, then you keep it 4. You're saying.
I'll do it 1 second. You sec. Almost going to be looking down on it, but anyway, I'll give it a go. Okay, we're going to suggest that we've got our 2 kosher walls and we stick a tefach, but only half a tefach there and half a tefach there.
Right.
And then if we were looking down on it, there would be, I'll just,
Like a bridge.
yeah.
So when you say Tzurat Petach, that is actually an entrance, isn't it? It's like an entrance.
Yeah, but it could be above. So here, again, we've got our two full walls, half a tefach and half a tefach. We're talking about, on the roof, and then you run a beam across between them to join them.
And it wouldn't have to be more than that.
Well, that's what we're suggesting.
So it'll be open to the elements unless you put a curtain on there.
Yeah, but no more open to the elements than just having a tefach there. We're talking about, does it look like something closed up? When you've got a frame, albeit an open frame, yeah.
So actually, you could put the schach on the top and use that as a support for the schach, couldn't you? The other wall, the small piece.
Yeah, you could.
So in that way, it's not covered anyway. It's covered with the schach.
I'm trying to draw 1 second. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So we're suggesting you've got these are the walls. You've got 1, 2 kosher. Here you put a tefach. Here you put a tefach, and then you run, going down tefach. So that's, I'm not drawing it very well. You see. There's a tefach beam that goes down, and running across the top of the tefach beam, running across the 2 half tefachim, you've got a beam, which creates a frame for you. Well, we'll look at it more next time, and I'll have to practice my drawing next time. I'm not sure I've got the right way around. Yeah, so that's what we're going to suggest is another option.